On this episode, we're counting down the top 5 attraction backstories at Walt Disney World, the ones that actually give you a reason to be on the ride in the first place. Today's June 13th, 2025. This is episode 780 of the Main Street Magic Podcast.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts, Main Street Magic's bringing it home for you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Main Street Magic. I am your host, Jeremy Stein, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely wife, Rhonda.
Hey guys!
If you want to be part of the community and join the conversation, get the latest theme park news, as well as live streams from the parks and resorts, head to Facebook and search for the Main Street Magic community and ask to join.
Make sure you check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com, as well as follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at mainstmagic, and on TikTok at MSM Podcast.
Planning a trip to Disneyland or Walt Disney World can be overwhelming and at times just downright frustrating. But don't worry, because Mouse Dining removes the frustration of booking Disney dining reservations, alerting you when they spot availability for your desired restaurant, date, meal, and time. Visit msmfriends.com to use this free service.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can get brand new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.
Are you ready for your bucket list trip? Our trusted partner, MEI Travel, will handle the planning so you can focus on the memories. They offer free vacation planning services and have nearly 20 years of experience creating memorable vacations. Visit mainstmagic.com/travel for a fee-free, no-obligation quote today.
Well, happy Father's Day, everyone, and especially to the father of my children, Jeremy Stein.
Thank you. And happy Friday 13th. It's Friday the 13th when this comes out. That's scary.
I have no idea about that.
Is it scary in June?
No.
Friday 13th is not scary in June, right?
No.
Nobody like goes on murdering sprees in June in small towns or at lakes or anything.
Right. I guess that's in Halloween time.
Yeah. Remember, we were talking to friends recently, and they send their daughter to a camp every year, and it's at Camp Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was quite amusing, if you've ever seen a Friday the 13th film. So we assume that this Camp Crystal Lake was around long before the movie came along. And I'm sure that there are many of them throughout the United States and world. But I probably personally, if I owned that business, would have looked at a name change.
Really?
I probably would have updated a little, or at least,
or make like around the Halloween time, like a.
Now that would be super cool to turn it into like a haunted something.
Yeah.
Or I would call it Camp Crystal Lake, and then underneath the motto would be like, no, not that one. You know what I mean? Like that'd be pretty good. But speaking of that in the story of Camp Crystal Lake.
Oh, good one.
Today we're going to talk about backstories for attractions at Walt Disney World. We did not too long ago most immersive rides, and there's a difference, right? Or there's a separation, I guess.
Right.
So the immersiveness, I think, of a ride or attraction covers from the moment you're walking up to it until the moment you leave. Right. And that's what immerses you in the actual story and somewhat suspends your belief or disbelief. I should say that this is happening. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Backstory, though, I think is very different in the sense that it's the reason you're in or on the attraction in the first place. You know,
right.
Why are you getting into a doom buggy, or why are you getting into elevator? Why are you getting on a mine cart? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what's the reason that you're here? And then what's the reason that you're going to get into some sort of vehicle, which is going to take you through an attraction?
Okay. That's
what it's about. How immersive technically the attraction is once you're in there or whatever it may be actually doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, a not very immersive attraction could technically have an incredible backstory. If you look at the entire backstory of, Dinorama and Route 66 and the old, Chester and Hester's, everything that's got, like, if you look at that whole area in the backstory, it's absolutely incredible. It's this huge, complicated, story that Joe Rohde and his team set up about Hester and Chester and all this. And if you go back and you really study it all, you're absolutely blown away. Right? But everybody would agree that wasn't the greatest land in the world. There's a reason Disney's getting rid of it, right?
Right.
So I guess for you, like what creates kind of, I guess, a good a backstory for you. Like, what things do you want it to accomplish? And usually the backstory is still going to accomplish its story within walking up, right? That's the visual backstory.
Right.
The queue
right.
is more visual. How does the queue tell the story of the reason you're here, why you're getting on, and then pre-show.
Right.
Right. From that moment, you're on the ride. Backstory is for the most part over. You're now in the story. So what are you looking for in that lead up in an attraction, I guess, to make the backstory either something that excites you? Like, do you care as much about backstory based on ride? Like, that's the thing too.
So I probably don't, unfortunately, until like you have before like explained it to me, or we've gone on a ride and like you've pointed out like, why are we on this ride? Well, it tells why. What are we doing? Oh, we're trying to save the galaxy. Like, you know, things like that. And just I think unfortunately the way my brain operates is I don't think about things like that until I'm just in awe, and I'm like looking and I'm like, wow. But then when you have pointed it out to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. And then sometimes to me, they are very like blatant, like web slingers.
Yeah.
Was really blatant to me. And unfortunately, again, only probably because you have pointed it out to me prior to different rides.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Cosmic Rewind. So I've tried to look at things more like that.
Yeah.
And then go, oh, wow, that's really, really cool.
And that can be part of a good backstory, too, is when you don't even know that you're getting a backstory. You know what I mean? And sometimes there can be these very subtle, sometimes they're very in your face, like web slingers. What we're going to focus on today, and we'll do a separate episode on other backstories, but today's backstory focus on the ones that we're going to rank are kind of more for your everyday theme park Disney guest.
Okay.
One who doesn't know a lot of background lore. You know, one who isn't going to stop and read maybe every little signage or look at every detail in a queue. These ones we're going to talk about at Walt Disney World today will be more along the lines of a web slinger.
Right.
Then what we can do is we'll do another episode that are more of those deep backstories that aren't exactly put in your face. Because that's another thing. You know, is it a backstory that you know by being there? Is it told to you while you're there? Or does it take some research? You know, when we did the last Keys to the Kingdom tour and they talked about Cinderella Castle and the immediate area in Fantasyland would be, all the folks that like work within Cinderella Castle. And that's the way that land is set out. That's the way it looks.
That's really
As you
cool.
go beyond towards Beast Castle, back to Ariel and those things, in Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, it becomes more wooded because that's where the village people would have lived. Okay. You're not going to know that story unless you do something like Keys to the Kingdom or you research it.
Right.
But what an incredible story that once you know it, it elevates
100%.
Going through that area in that land of Magic
100%.
Kingdom. Now, again, today's going to be much more of, you know, your family's coming out to Disney and maybe you've been before, but it's been a while. Maybe you've never been. And you're thinking like, what are those rides that are going to set up and just kind of blow your mind of why we're here?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to one that is not making our list, but it's kind of the example that I wanted to give of what an incredible backstory that most people don't know. And that's why it's not going to make our main list here. And that is of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Do you know a little bit of backstory of Big Thunder?
Probably not, because
there's no pre-show.
There's no pre-show. There's just
it's a lot of queue.
It's just a lot of queue, but it's neat because I do like the queue because it is to me like you're out west, because I've been out west. It's old. It's like, I think it's really cool because it is very western and like that kind of desert. Like,
you're in the Wild West. So there's a legend about Big Thunder Mountain.
Oh.
Story begins in the little town of Rainbow Ridge in the late 1800s. The time of the gold rush. When gold was discovered, miners constructed a rail system to transport the gold. Unbeknownst to the settlers, the mountain was cursed by the spirit of Big Thunder. The spirits caused earthquakes and floods, destroying the mines and causing residents to flee. The town became deserted until years later when explorers found trains speeding through the mines with no passengers inside. Now the railroad is open for thrill seekers who are willing to ride these possessed carts at their own risk.
Ha!
So again, what an incredible
That's
backstory,
cool.
but it's something that you really have to dig in and research. And if you go way back to the original Frontierland and that Mesa, I can't remember what the whole land was going to be called off the top of my head, but that's kind of what this was born out of in this entire story. And I do think that it's one of the reasons that I personally trust Disney putting Cars Land, which will be called Piston Peak, in Frontierland area, because they are already starting to put out the breadcrumbs for the story. Why is it there?
Nice.
Why is it around these other things like a Big Thunder, a Tiana's, the Country Bear Jamboree? It's going to tell the story and the reason that all of this exists.
That's
now,
cool.
We'll do it in your face or we'll do it in the background the way that Big Thunder does. Don't know. All right, we're going to move on to a true honorable mention. And the only reason this is an honorable mention is because it is going away. It will be around for the rest of this year, and that is Dinosaur at Disney's Animal Kingdom. What backstory would you say it has? And here's what we're going to do is I'm going to throw it to Rhonda, who, again, just said, she is more, I think, when you're in these rides, you are more of a casual theme park guest.
Yeah.
Where I tend to look at every little detail and scrutinize and figure out how things work. So, admitting that you don't dive a lot into backstories and you kind of just, you go in and you just let the backstory happen and then you get on a ride and you enjoy it. What is the backstory of Dinosaur?
Well, it's a Dino Institute where you're literally going in to see like fossils and all kinds of stuff. And then you go into this awesome pre-show that Dr. Seeker has a time rover, and we're going to go back in time to the dinosaurs and we're going to try to bring back a dinosaur, which I think is really cool. And it just, I'm going to miss it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, so I mean, you're spot on. The ride's housed in the Dino Institute. It's a scientific research center, specializes in paleontological discoveries, including fossilized dinosaurs. You are going to be put on a mission. You're recruited by the paleontologist, of course, Dr. Seeker, for a secret mission to rescue an iguanodon before it becomes extinct. We know that he, hacks into the system. It was blocked out to go back when the meteor shower hit, which again is all laid out in the pre-show. There's a meteor shower coming. We can't go all the way back to this time. You're locked out. Then Seeker says, nah, just kidding, we're not. We can go back to when the iguanodon is. That sets up. Why are you in the Dino Institute? Why are you getting in a ride vehicle? Why is it going back in time? Why are there dinosaurs? Why are there meteors? You know what I mean? So it really sets up and gives you that reason of, why am I here? Right. And so I think that is the true tale of a good backstory.
Yes. And this one to me is more nostalgic because when we watch that, he has a little dinosaur puppet and he says, well, hello there. And that's how he says it, right? Hello there.
Hello there.
And it's super cute because Kaylin, I'm pretty sure she could probably almost word for word.
Yeah. So you can mouth the entire pre-show still. So we did always love that part. Of course, this was originally, if you did not know, Countdown to Extinction. When the land opened in 98, they came out with the movie Dinosaur that we have not seen. I don't know that many people have. It was a CGI driven.
I thought we tried to watch it.
I think we might have tried to put it on one time. So they slightly changed the story around getting this iguanodon from Dinosaur. And of course, I wonder if the red, yellow, and white pipes will survive into the Indy ride, which were supposed to represent your ketchup, your mustard, and your mayo. Which is the thing, everybody, if you don't know anything about Dinosaur and you go in there and you're with a Disney person, 99 times out of 100, that Disney person will point that out to you and be so happy about it because I've done it many times. And the person you're telling is going to be like, cool.
That's me.
Yeah, well, I don't know. All right, let's move into our true list. At number 5, what do we have?
Minnie and Mickey's Runaway Railway.
We do, over at Hollywood Studios. Rhonda, what would you say, from writing this dozens of times, is the backstory?
So, to me, the backstory really kind of gets into like the pre-show.
Yeah.
To me, the queue, just I'm saying this out loud because, again, this is what you wanted. To me, the queue has nothing to do with it except there's posters, and I'm like, cool. But what really, to me, is the backstory is when we go into this pre-show and Minnie and Mickey are on this cartoon and we're watching it. And then, spoiler alert. Yeah, spoiler alert. If you truly haven't ridden it, it blows up the screen and everything. It is the coolest thing in the world. And then we go into the cartoon. So, I mean, anything you've ever seen on TV where they pretend to like be sucked in, like Jumanji.
Yeah. Or I mean, Roger Rabbit.
Roger Rabbit.
If you're trying, sucked in like Jumanji. But you're kind of thinking of that cartoon world meets human world of a Roger Rabbit.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's super cool. Super cool. Yeah. And I love it. And then again, like the second part of the queue, I'll say, after the blow up screen and going, that to me is like, okay, now we're waiting in this line to get on the train. So yeah. Did I get it?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. You know, you're. I will say this, so I don't forget to say it. The building, which of course was built directly for it, the building, the queue, everything at Disneyland sets the backstory from the moment you're walking up. The moment you walk into Toontown, 1,000 times better than Hollywood 100%. Studios does here at Disney World. Let's all admit that. The queue 100%. Is such a part of the backstory here. We got some slapped up posters. So you are going to a premiere. I had to like do the little thing. Premiere, right?
Okay.
Of a new Mickey Mouse cartoon called Perfect Picnic. And guests are invited to watch in the El Capitan Theater, which is a replica of the Chinese theater.
Okay.
At Hollywood Studios, basically.
Yep. Okay.
As you watch the cartoon, mishap occurs, causing you as the guest to be transported through the silver screen and into the center of a bright, playful cartoon adventure. Suddenly, they're riding Engineer Goofy's train and embarking on a chaotic and zippy, zany, out of control adventure as the train cars detach because somebody must have hit that track switch.
The track switch.
All right. So again, you know, I think you look at this and go, all right, I'm going to pretend I'm on the ride. Mm-hmm. How did I get here? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, how did I get here?
I mean,
and again, this is one that explains it.
Yes.
You know, you're kind
100%.
of you're kind of minding your own business. You're going to see a premiere of The Perfect Picnic because you love Mickey and Minnie.
Right.
And they've got this new cartoon short. You go to the El Capitan Theater. Next thing you know, Goofy messes everything up. Right? And you're transported into a cartoon. Mm-hmm. And again, I think that just sets such a perfect stage.
Oh, 100%.
All right. Next up, we're going to move to our number 4. And who is that?
Which is Tower of Terror?
Yes.
Hollywood Studios.
Yes. So, what happened? What happened?
Again.
Why are you getting in this elevator, Rhonda?
Now, this is, to me, this is how I'm going to explain it. Because you asked. I don't know if are you ready for this? No, but I'm just kidding. But I feel like going up to it, there's this haunted mansion. Like, it's almost like a haunted mansion. This is a haunted hotel.
Feel, of course, yes.
Where, I mean, it is
the backstory
old.
Begins.
That's where, to me, and I do believe it starts in the queue because I'm like, but I don't know I'm getting on an elevator. Right. Like, I'm like,
but at that moment, again, you're setting up, you're walking up and you're going, why does this look old and abandoned? You know, why am I in this courtyard, which obviously is a queue and everything's overgrown and plants are dead? Why on earth does it look like this building is scorched?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which then begins to continue to take
when you get inside and then you do go into the pre-show, obviously to me, that's where everything is and then is set up and says the whole like, okay, now I think I understand I'm getting on an actual elevator. And then that elevator, well, you're in the boiler room and then and then you get on the elevator and all that. So and
I mean, talk about kind of a web slinger setup. This is one that is very in your face. I mean, I will admit, this is about as blunt as they can be. You know, they're going to put you in a room and they're going to put Rod Sterling on the screen and he's going to say, this is why you're here, right?
Right.
Picture this, or however he does his stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are at the Hollywood Tower of Hotel, of course. It is a fictional one that originally hosted the Hollywood Elite. On October 31st, 1939, Halloween night, a storm struck the hotel, causing a catastrophic event that led to the disappearance of an elevator and its passengers, right?
That's crazy.
So you're going to board this elevator that mysteriously vanishes to be transported into the Twilight Zone. So now the hotel's haunted, it's an abandoned building, and the remnants of the lightning strike and the missing elevator serving as a reminding of the tragic night, which, again, you can all see from that outside.
Right.
So, again, you know, you're basically putting in here to kind of find this missing elevator, and then you're transported into the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
So, again, a reason. Now, what I think is amazing about a ride like this, let's talk about Velocicoaster real quick. Okay? What is Velocicoaster's backstory?
There's raptors in the paddock.
Right,
There's
because the guests wanted more teeth. So
right, and
they decided to build a roller coaster in the raptor paddock, right?
Right.
It's a great setup.
Yeah.
Does Velocicoaster as a ride need a great setup? Not really. It's an awesome coaster.
And
know
it's
what I mean?
not a major setup. Like,
No,
it's
it's
not
not.
like pre-shows. You're literally just going.
And it's an in-your-face.
Yeah.
It is a web slinger style.
Yeah.
Here's Owen, and I'm going to tell you exactly why
Yeah.
you're here, and we're going to tell you exactly what's going to happen and why you're getting in this roller coaster. It makes sense, but obviously we've all become to expect Universal to offer the same type of incredible backstory. I mean, shoot, Monsters Unchained, holy moly. You know, we didn't even get Universal involved in this talk, but I got to tell you right now, Monsters Unchained could unthrone a couple of these in the top
100%.
5.
I mean,
that's
I'm
for
sorry.
sure. Maybe our top 2.
Absolutely.
You know? But yeah, so you look at something like Velocicoaster, we know that Universal is going to tell a story, but in reality, if you simply walked up to Velocicoaster, there was no story, there was no theming, and you got on that coaster and you rode it, you're still going to walk off and go, that was incredible.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the same is kind of like a Tower of Terror. Dr. Doom Fearfall, right? That's got a backstory.
Right.
I don't know what it is. But the ride is fun. And it's thrilling on its own.
Yeah.
So is Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
The fact that they have gone through so much to take a simple carnival ride, which is a free fall tower ride. You know, you can find those everywhere. We can go to IAAPA in November and see them sitting in the middle.
They pull it down, remember?
Oh, I know. But I'm saying in general, this is a pretty simple ride that could technically live on its own and be a blast.
Yeah.
But they've created such a detailed backstory behind it that I think is just amazing.
Yeah.
So let's move on to number 3, which is going to be
The Cosmic Rewind.
Yes, over at Epcot.
Yes.
Rhonda, what's up? Why are we doing Cosmic Rewind? Why are we there? And I got to say, this does one of the best jobs of why you are there.
Yeah, but I will have to admit that you kind of, the queue itself, you, like what I'm about to say is from you. Because it, to me, really didn't set up until the pre-show, which is with, what's her name? Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn Close.
Yes,
Yeah, and Terry
Glenn
Crews and
Close.
all. Now, one thing I will say before you go into it, because I know where you're going, you got to remember, we've ridden this like 50 times.
Right.
The first probably 45, we went through Lightning Lane.
But still,
you know what I mean?
But still,
so you
when we
missed
first,
a lot of the main queue.
I know,
area,
and I still,
many of the times
but
that
I've
we originally
still
went
seen
through.
it.
Okay, yeah.
And
Continue.
I will, but I'm saying I still saw it. I just, until you pointed out. So that to me, I'm going to go ahead and let you read and do your thing. That to me was just kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like, I don't know what I'm here for.
So your reason for being there isn't quite
correct.
as
And not
blatant
until
as I might think. So then, why are you getting on this? Why are you getting in this coaster ride?
because
what's your
Glenn
understanding of the
Close
Black
tells
story?
us that what?
I just love it. You keep saying Glenn Close.
Oh, she tells us that they've made this cool thing where they can transport us and then they can take us and show us and do this fun stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm totally down for this. And
She
then
can tell you where you can go get 101 puppies.
no,
what
she
she
does
does.
not, because that is a different movie.
Yeah.
And then Terry comes on, and that's super cool because he's like, we're going to transport you up, and you get in this transport. And I mean, it is just freaking cool. And then I'm like, okay, like now I know where I'm going. And then it shows like, you know, of course something always messes up.
Yeah.
So it's
that's always going to be the turning point of every ride backstory.
Yes.
Something goes wrong.
Right. And there wasn't Goofy involved, but
right. Yeah.
You know, there was a big man involved.
Yep. Yeah, that is a big man.
Yeah.
All right. So here's where I think it is so incredible, the setup of why you are even here, right? The Xandarians have established the Wonders of Xandar Pavilion. It's a gift to Earth.
Yes.
What they call Terra.
And this is what Jeremy told me. And that's why I was going to let him read it because I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I'll be honest, once he told me this, I looked at the queue 1,000 times differently.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you're literally going through this pavilion that the Xandarians have made here on Earth. Mm-hmm. And we even learn it's in Epcot because Peter Quill grew up. He loved going to Epcot, right? So it even tells you why the heck it's... Shoot, I'm trying to think. And again, I know that there are others off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of other attractions that basically admit they're in a theme park. You know what I mean? Tower of Terror isn't saying, hey, this is an old hotel that we built a theme park around and now you're visiting.
That's
you know what
true.
I mean? This literally says our attraction is inside of a theme park, and that theme park is called Epcot. So in that sense, it almost breaks the fourth wall of storytelling within rides and attractions because normally it doesn't.
Blow up.
That's actually pretty cool. I never really thought of that way. It just says, hey, we're in a theme park. Mm-hmm. Let's own it. Right. So again, this is very similar to me of, you know, you go to New York. We were talking about this last night. You go to New York, right? Mm-hmm. And you go to a museum. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
And maybe at one of the museums currently they're having, a special showing of, like the wonders of Asian culture or something. And you go through this and you go, wow, I'm learning about the Asian culture, or I'm learning about, whatever it may be. And that's what you're doing here. So you're literally looking at their culture, their technology, and they're going to show you the way that they're going to do this is they're going to demonstrate the cosmic generator by transporting you up there because, it'd take 300 million light years or whatever to actually travel to Xandar.
Right.
So they tell you all this. As you're in there in the transport ship, of course, everything goes wrong. Isan, the Celestial, shows up. He steals the cosmic generator. That's when they tell you why you're getting in this car. We know that Rocket devises a plan that he's going to send us through the jump points back in time, which even sets up the reason that it's a backward launch, because you are launching backwards through time and space to save the galaxy.
That's cool. So cool.
When they said Guardians of the Galaxy is coming to Epcot, everybody said, what?
That's dumb.
Why?
Yeah.
It doesn't fit.
Right.
I think they did everything possible to make this fit about as perfectly as possible.
Absolutely.
Again, it's a reason I'm not quite as worried about Piston Peak and Cars Land.
Right. It's over by Mission Space and everything, too.
Yeah, so and it makes sense to be in that area.
Yeah,
and you're going to experience Mission Space, which, again, you have a reason for being in this whole area. First of all, you're going to go. You can dine in space. You're going to actually dine somewhere that's going to take you 220 miles up into space, right? From there, you can also go and you can basically do a mission that slingshots you around Earth, right? Or goes to Mars. And then from there, you can go see the wonders of Xandar.
Yep.
So
I think it's cool.
Yeah, I just think that's amazing. I'll be interested to see now, Test Track. They took down the construction walls from the front.
I heard.
There's a lot of testing going on.
I heard.
I'm hoping we're going to get an announcement soon, for end of summer, which is September 22nd or something like that. So we'll see. Yeah. I wonder if we get like a Labor Day weekend opening or something. Will be interesting. But that was our number 3. And next we are going to move into number 2. Actually, do you want to talk 2 and 1? And do we feel that we put them in the right area? Because I'm going to tell you what they are. The Rise of Resistance, and they are Flight of Passage.
You just jumped right in.
Right?
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
But are you thinking, which do you think would you put at number 2 and which would you put at number 1? Based on all the criteria that we've now kind of stated.
So it's really hard because both of them, honestly, I feel like they could almost share, and it just depends on what bigger fan you are.
Yeah.
If you're a bigger Star Wars fan, it can be your number one, and if you're a bigger Flight of Passage, because to me, both of these, and here's how I'm going to say it. To me, both of these, you walk into the land.
And that's a huge part of these two being our number 1 and 2.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So you walk into the land and like, I feel like maybe Flight of Passage could beat out Rise. Well, no, because they're almost very similar cues. Because, like, to me, like, you're just walking around, like, Galaxy's Edge, and you're like, oh, what's these kind of cave parts? Let's go back in here.
Next thing you know, you're recruited.
Right. Next thing you know, you're like, wait, what? What's going on? You're just checking things out. You're like, what's all this? This is cool.
You're recruited by the Resistance.
You're recruited by the Resistance. Same as Flight of Passage. You're like, what is this? What are all these like caves? Let's go look. And then all of a sudden, like, you're in where you're in not test places, but where there's people that have done research and figuring things out, and then you go and you get to fly on the back of a Banshee, and like that, and then all that too. So I think either one, again, like you said.
Here's what I'll say. I think, and I'll go over all the details of it, I think Flight of Passage has to sit at number 1 simply, well, there's 2 reasons. One, the majority of folks that go into Galaxy's Edge and Rise of Resistance, they know Star Wars.
Correct.
Right? They don't have to be fans. They know of Star Wars. It's one of the most recognized, probably, movie franchises in the entire world.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So they recognize it. I think it's easier for them to understand and enjoy and maybe get involved in the backstory. Avatar, however, I do think has a kind of a lot of people that don't love it or have just never bothered seeing it or whatever it may be. And I think it does an amazing job of setting up a story for folks that either A, have never seen an Avatar movie, or B, saw it and hated it for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But when I get into more of the backstory for Flight of Passage here, you'll see why I think it does belong at number 1. You know, because truly, the backstory for Rise of Resistance, it's actually a backstory for the next backstory. You know what I mean? Like, you first walk up because you're interested in joining the Resistance, and it sets up that story before you get into the room with BB-8 and Rey and all, right?
Right.
So its only job is setting you up to why you're in that room. That room's only job is now setting it up to why you're going to go out and get in this transport ship. Mm-hmm. And then that transport ship's job into the interrogation and into the actual, what you're, I guess, now considering the ride vehicle on the trackless portion, it's setting up for all of that.
Right.
So I think it has this multi-layered of, we got to tell one backstory to tell the next, to tell the next, to tell the next, which I think is unbelievable.
Oh, 100%.
Basically, you're a recruit joining the Resistance. Your mission is intercepted by the First Order. You must escape their Star Destroyer with the help of familiar heroes. Perfectly set up. Right. You have your recruiting and mission briefing that we were talking about with Rey and BB-8,
right?
Which then sets up for why you're going into the transport ship. While you're in the transport ship, it tells the story, a backstory of why you're going to be captured.
Right.
Right. From there, you go into your interrogation area, but it's telling you, why am I going in an interrogation area? Right. Mm-hmm. Because they want to find out where the secret base is, because I know where it is.
Yeah.
And then there you basically escape. You go through everything, right? And you come out to the end of the ride.
Yeah.
And you know the entire story of why you're there.
Right.
Now, it took a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And it took 40 years plus years to establish some of these characters. Not so much here because you're not going with the original trilogy, right?
Right.
You're going with the later movies and all, and Kylo Ren and characters like that. But again, it had all these things to set it up before you ever step foot in a theme park.
Right.
Right? Avatar had one movie. That's it. Okay?
Now 2.
Well, yeah, now 2, but at the time, 1 movie. So basically, you're syncing with an avatar to ride a Banshee as part of the Pandora conservation efforts. It's facilitated by the Alpha Centauri expeditions and the Pandora Conservation Initiative. Okay, not bad, right? Mm-hmm. While you're in there, they tell you exactly why you're going to fly, right?
Yeah.
Timu Sigourney Weaver comes out, right?
What,
and she
Timu?
tells you,
Did you
and
just
she
say
tells you
Timu,
everything. I know
Sigourney
that was rude, and I do apologize. I stinks that they didn't have Sigourney. I wish they would have replaced the part having a different person, but I know they had to bring her from like the first film. So anyway, they tell you, here's why you're doing it. They really set it up.
Right.
But do you want to hear some of the backstory behind the backstory?
Yeah.
So the ride is set within the Pandora Conservation Initiative, the PCI. It's an organization established after the events of the first Avatar film, aiming to restore the moon's ecosystem following the damage caused by the mining operations of the RDA, the Resources Development Administration. Right? And they cover a lot of this, obviously.
Yeah, they do.
PCI headquarters are located within the ruins of a former RDA mining facility, now repurposed for research and conservation efforts. Within the facility, guests encounter a realistic animatronic Na'vi in the amino tank, which signifies the reactivation of the Avatar program. Avatar program was initially used by humans to explore Pandora in the film. It's reactivated by ACE for research purposes. PCI, through their advanced technology, it allows guests to participate in a genetic matching process, connecting them to an avatar that are already linked on the Banshees. Of course, we know all of that because it is allowing guests to experience the Na'vi's coming-of-age ritual, rite of passage. Yeah. So there is so much else behind this entire land and this entire ride.
Right.
Like, did you know that the ride is set 100 years after the events of the first Avatar movie?
Wow.
Right? So...
But that's cool.
Yeah. So, again, this is one of those things that I think it truly sets it up so perfectly because you don't know why you're here. And if you haven't seen Avatar or you saw it when it first came out, the first movie, which was in 1923.
No, it wasn't.
It was actually Walt Disney's first movie.
No, it wasn't.
That he produced with Walt Disney Studios was Avatar.
Okay.
And then later came...
Speaking of that, Snow White, I think, is out. So
it is
we'll
out
watch
streaming.
It.
We can watch that tonight maybe. But yeah, so I just think it does such a great job of saying, and I've thought that from the beginning. I was blown away from the beginning. We didn't watch Avatar until about a week before the preview of Pandora for annual pass holders.
Well, I did. You did.
You had, but I had not. And so we sat down as a family. We watched it.
And then walking into Pandora, like seeing the mountains, like the floating mountains, like it's incredible. Disney is just incredible.
And that's the thing is Disney, every single thing that Disney does has a backstory. Mm-hmm. When we love Walulu Bar and Grill. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love it. When you walk in there, now, they've been open a little while. Sometimes, these places, they're little spiels, and the things that they do might start to taper off the longer they're open. We, of course, most of the times we sit with our wonderful cast member friend, Jamie. So she's given us a lot of insight. But ask questions when you go somewhere like Walulu. So cool. Okay? Ask if you're sitting outside, for example. Normally, they'll walk you through the indoor dining area. Make sure that they point out what's on the wall. Make sure they point out what's up in the ceiling. Mm-hmm. Have them tell you about... the Walulu signature burger, have them tell you, and get it. Have them tell you about, even if you're not going to get it because you want to get like the banana old fashioned or something, have them tell you about Liar's spirit proof, or spirit free, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cocktails and stuff that they make with the pina colada. Like, ask the questions that tell the backstory about this because you'll be blown away by how much thought goes into every single thing that they do. Yeah, so again, cool. I think I had a fun time doing this type of episode. So we will do one on kind of the hidden backstories, like the Big Thunder Mountains. And then let's do a whole separate series or episodes in the future on Universal.
That'd be fun.
And now one of those might have to wait until after we hit Epic again because we really want to do Ministry of Magic and experience it before we go, and Stardust Racers and Curse of the Werewolf before we can come back and really talk about Universal backstories and immersiveness and all that. So if you want to hear all that coming to you in the future, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and you get brand new episodes every single Tuesday and Friday. Of course, Rhonda, myself, both Thor and Stitch would be super thankful if you could please leave us a rating and review.
Because it helps our show grow.
That's all we've got. We'll see you real soon.
Jeremy and Rhonda are more than a little fond of Disney World, so they made this podcast to share it all with you. Reports and resorts, top 10 lists of all sorts, Main Street Magic's bringing it home